Hey guys, I'm Will from Tested.
And I'm Norm from Tested.
Norm, last month, actually a month and a half ago now, I put a smoke detector in the hallway of my house.
You didn't have a smoke detector there.
I used to have one, but because the hallway of my house is right outside the kitchen of my house, every time I boiled water, it went off, which meant that it was completely useless.
Why does that happen?
It has to do with the sensor technology that's used in the smoke detectors.
Now, that's essential in every house, having a smoke detector. Almost every room.
Most states require you have a smoke detector on both floors, in all bedrooms, and then also in hallways outside of bedrooms.
Okay.
So that means that if you have a two-story house with 3 bedrooms on one floor, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, you have to have 3 on that second floor, 1 for each of the 2 bedrooms, 1 in the hallway outside, 1 in the hallway upstairs, and then 1 in each of the bedrooms upstairs, and frequently even in like the stairwells and stuff like that.
Now, sometimes contractors just buy the cheapest smoke detector.
So that's what I had in my house up until this point. I had a 5-pack of what are literally $5 each. It looks like this one. You can get them at Lowe's. Typically, these only have one of the 2 kinds of sensors that are in common usage. So there's 2 types of sensors. Neither one is particularly more expensive than the other. Neither is better than the other necessarily, but you kind of want both in your smoke detector, or at least you want to have one, and then you want to have some other stuff too. The other part of this is carbon monoxide detection.
Yes, which in California is mandatory.
Required.
In every room.
Every living room. Is it every room?
It's every
room. You have to have it in like your living room?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, that sounds expensive.
Yeah, it is.
So carbon monoxide detectors are usually like $30 for the ones that plug into the wall. If you want to get a smoke detector that has a carbon monoxide detector built in, that's $50 and up, depending on whether it connects to 120 volt or is battery powered, and whether it talks to all the other smoke detectors in your house.
But you went big.
Well, so there's this new thing.
It's new.
It's brand new.
That's why it's worth it.
So that's why I swung wide. This is the Nest Protect. It's right here on this shot. It's brand new. It's from the people that made the Nest thermostat. Tony Fadell, you may know from such products as the iPod, launched Nest a few years ago with their first smart thermostat.
That's a beautiful looking device.
It is. It's really good. Now, I'm going to go and tell you there is one super obvious design problem with this. Which of these things is not like the other? So look, we have 3 smoke detectors here.
Mm-hmm. One's like $5.
2 super cheapos.
One's like $10.
Yep.
And then one's like $130.
$130.
I think the one that looks better designed is probably the more expensive one.
So why are smoke detectors round traditionally?
So they can take in the smoke fumes from every direction and also project audio in every direction?
No. They're round because it doesn't matter what orientation they're in when you hang them on your ceiling. When you have a square smoke detector, you have to line it up so the bracket is perfectly lined up, or else with the walls and the edges of the room, or else it looks super crooked and real janky.
And so if you have that type of OCD, it would bother you.
I have that type of OCD when it pertains to the things that I look at every day. It took maybe 20 minutes longer to get this guy lined up and centered because it's square and because the way it has a round mechanism that ratchets, that snaps onto the Go away.
In the hallway.
And
Press to test.
Spoilers.
It talks to you.
Spoilers. It talks to you. It took a long time to get it hung up. That's really the only problem I have with the smoke detector. Their pitch for Nest is that they make more human-friendly products in categories that kind of typically suck.
Now, does your smoke detector need to really be human-friendly? It needs to work.
You haven't had your house long enough to wake up in the middle of the night because the 9-volt battery started dying.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes doot, doot, at like a 5-minute interval, just enough to make you go to sleep and wake up.
So most smoke detectors are battery operated. Some wire into the ceiling.
Newer houses, yeah, you have a 120-volt wire pair that comes in.
But you still need to replace the battery because that's the backup.
Exactly. You don't want your smoke detectors to stop working when the power goes out. And so yeah, Nest has this smoke detector in both a purely battery powered, which uses 6, I think they're Energizer lithium long life AA batteries. This one is actually saying the battery is low after about 2 months. I think it's because I just did a whole bunch of dumb stuff with it over the last 20 minutes and it's maybe sagged and it will recover. We'll see. Typically the 9-volt batteries you replace either on spring forward or fall back day every year. That's the recommended. So you don't forget when the daylight savings time changes, you change the battery in your smoke detectors.
Okay.
This should last significantly longer than those with the 6 AAAs, double A's.
It plugs into your wall, your ceiling, and it also has the backup of the 6 AAAs.
Well, the one my house doesn't have the 220-volt wires. You buy either the 128-volt model, which has a small rechargeable battery inside, I assume, or the 6 AAA model, which is purely battery powered.
So that in itself is a minor innovation that includes a rechargeable battery.
I think
as
even
opposed to a 9-volt battery.
These aren't rechargeable lithium batteries.
Okay.
These are like camera batteries, and they're lithium. They hold charge over a long period of time and provide a trickle rather than bursts.
You don't have to replace it on Spring Forward Day.
They said the battery should last more than a year. It's lasted about a month right now. Like I said, I think it's because I've been doing I reset it a couple of times over the last hour, and I think it's sagged. Obviously it's a month old, so we haven't been able to test it for a year.
Okay.
The thing that I like about this is that there's not a lot of ambiguity in the UI. When things are good and it makes a beep, it says, hey, the battery's low, you might need to change it. It doesn't say, hey, pay attention to me, something indeterminate is wrong, and then you have to go find the 50-page manual that you have over there that's all folded out and figure out what 2 short chirps and 1 long chirp means. It's also internet connected, so you can connect to it on your phone. I have the app here on my phone, and it just shows up with the other Nest devices like your thermostat or whatever as a protect. Right now it has the yellow because the battery is very low and it says we need to change the battery out. But you can see, for example, if you have a smoke alert or something like that, it'll say, hey, it's red, there's fire in your house, you probably should get out. Or it's red, there's smoke, there's carbon monoxide in the room, you should get out. And of course, if you have these smoke detectors in all the rooms in your house, then it'll say they're interconnected. And if there's smoke in your hallway, it will say, over all of them, hey, there's smoke in the hallway, get the hell out.
It's situationally aware.
It's situationally aware. It also gives you a warning before it starts shrieking, which I think is very nice.
So it doesn't, if you're cooking a steak and it's smoking, it will say, for example.
Let's see, it actually says, heads up, there's smoke in the hallway.
There's smoke in the hallway.
And then sometimes it gives you a countdown.
I'm going to shriek in about 5 minutes.
You got 5 seconds before I start shrieking. You can run over. You can hit. There's the Nest logo in the front is a button. You can press that to hush it.
On the ceiling, is that a jump move?
If you could use like a spatula if you're short, but I can hit it just with my hand because I have low ceilings. You can also, it supposedly supports gestures. I've had kind of mixed results with this.
Waving at the ceiling?
No
fire.
You know the move. The smoke detector starts shrieking, and you go grab a magazine, you start waving it as if that's going to make the smoke go away and the sound go off.
Open all the doors and.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
So you do the wave, and it says, oh, there's a motion detector in here. So it sees and it takes that as a hush movement. Both that and the heads up thing are optional. You can turn them on or off. So for example, if you have it in like your kid's room and you want to know the instant there's any smoke or fire in your kid's room, then you can turn it off on a per detector basis.
In terms of alarm systems, having a false positive is not as bad as not being able to detect the actual problem.
Yeah, false positives are bad if there's a lot of them. False negatives are bad if there's any of them.
Right. So you didn't experience any false negatives?
No, I had a couple of false positives. One time I left a cast iron skillet in the oven when I was preheating it to 500 degrees. That made a lot of smoke. It went off exactly as I would expect the moment I opened the oven. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to hit the button and turn it off relatively quickly. It also sent me a push. It also sends a push notification to your phone. So if you're not in the house, you get a heads up if that stuff happens. That's kind of handy.
You shouldn't be using the oven if you're not in the house.
But I mean, if you have multiple people in your house, then maybe somebody's overcome by the fumes or something like that. Or if there's a carbon monoxide problem, then that means a lot of times people will be overcome by the carbon monoxide before they know it's there.
It's an odorless killer.
Theoretically, this should warn you before that becomes a problem. But just in case they don't, you're away. You can call your wife and/or the fire department.
All right. So earlier you talked about sensor technologies. We got to talk about how smoke detectors actually work and differences in them. I bought a cheap $5 smoke detector, which has one type of sensor. It says ionization, and then there was another type that had both ionization and photoelectric. How do those things work?
Okay, so ionization has a small patch of a radioactive particle inside called americium. It's just an element. It degrades at a predictable rate and releases an alpha particle every few moments, or maybe even faster than that. I don't know what the rate is. Anyway, The alpha particle is aimed at a sensor plate. When that alpha particle hits a sensor plate, the alarm goes. The alarm doesn't go off. If smoke gets in between those particles in between the emitter and the sensor, enough of those particles will stop happening and stop hitting the sensor, and the alarm goes off.
Okay.
So those are called ionization sensors. They tend to trigger better on smaller particles, which are typically from fast-burning fires, things with open flame. So if you have an oil fire in your kitchen, that's going to trigger the ionization
Newspaper
sensor.
catches on fire.
Yeah.
Or even steam.
So that's the other downside of the ionization sensors, is that they will trigger on steam as well. So if you're boiling water, you have a big cloud of steam come out of your oven when you're braising something, that will trigger an ionization sensor, assuming they don't have other stuff to kind of counter that. They can have humidity sensors and things like that as well. Now, the other technology is called photoelectric sensors, and those are just what they seem. They're very similar to garage door, the sensors that keep you from crushing small children in your garage door. It's basically a beam of light is shot at one sensor. If enough of the light particles are reflected into another sensor, then that will trigger the smoke alarm.
And so that is theoretically better at detecting larger particles.
That is better at detecting larger particles, things that come from smoldering fires. So if you have a patch of oily rags that are just emitting smoke, but not really burning, just about to burn, that'll go for a long period of time.
Smoldering fires. Now, the Nest smoke detector only uses the photoelectric.
It's only photoelectric, but they add a humidity sensor, which I presume it hasn't triggered on steam at all, and I've done a fair amount of hanging boiling water directly underneath it. I have to assume that the humidity sensor that they have in there counteracts that. We should talk about a couple of other features of smoke detectors too while we're going, just general features. The other thing is the voice control or voice activation. So there are smoke detectors on the market that will say, hey, there's smoke in your house. They're typically dumber than this. The Nest, when you set it up, you tell it which room it's in. You say it's in kids' room 1, it's in the hallway, it's in the kitchen, it's in the dining room. So you get a little bit more information. The other part of it is that the interconnected nature is super important if you have a large house, especially.
Now I have a question about where you mount this. You
Yes.
talked about mounting it, theoretically close to a power supply if you're using the one that connects to the wall. Because this also has carbon monoxide detection, my carbon monoxide detectors go on the floor in the power outlet. I mean, that's just also because where they get power.
Right.
Now, does it matter where you put your carbon monoxide detector or smoke detector?
So what Nest says is that if you have wires coming out of the ceiling, that's probably the okay place to put your smoke detector. Theoretically, when the house was built, if there's wires there, it was inspected as part of the permitting process for building new construction or whatever. And theoretically, the person who came and looked at that should have said, oh yeah, these are good places to put smoke detectors. And they're all up to code and all that.
And carbon monoxide isn't heavier than air, so
Right.
it's basically neutral with air.
So with carbon monoxide distributes evenly throughout air. The thing that's important with carbon monoxide sensors, from everything I've read, both at Nest and in third-party like UL stuff, is that it detects at a very low part per million, so that you know. So you're warned before the point that you become overcome that you need to open the windows and get out of the house.
All right.
And so the warning signals are different for smoke. It says, heads up, there's smoke in the room. Heads up, there's carbon monoxide in the room. And then you get a multi-chirp beep for carbon monoxide and a long siren, I think, for smoke. And the ring, this light ring, if you see this light ring that glows blue when you hit the
Heads
button,
up, the battery is
we know the battery's
in the
low.
hallway.
Turns red if there's actually an emergency. So there's other sensors. It has the carbon monoxide sensors we mentioned before. I haven't actually had that go off because I don't have carbon monoxide problems in my house. Friend of the site, Jackie Cheng, formerly of ours, now of Wirecutter, had her carbon monoxide detector go off because she actually had a furnace problem earlier this year. So we know people who have had it work. It was tested by Underwriters Laboratory. I assume that stuff just works. It has a heat sensor, also good for helping detect false positives. Yep. There's 3 activity sensors, which I think are what they're calling motion sensors. So it lets you detect things like the wave. It also, like the Nest thermostat, is smart about movement in its vicinity. So if you have it on the wall in your bedroom, it will know, well, hey, Will's in his bedroom. Or maybe not Will, someone's in the bedroom. That stuff feeds back up to the Nest service and down to the thermostat if you have that, so that it has more data points to detect whether people are at home, whether it should be in home mode or away mode, which is great if you have a thermostat someplace that maybe is off the beaten path, and so that stuff doesn't actually
That is
work
something
very
that
well.
people have had concerns about. in terms of privacy, because you were talking about both this and potentially the Nest thermostat being connected to Wi-Fi. They're not talking directly to each other. It's going through the Nest service.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a privacy concern. If you are in the market for a $130 smoke detector, I have to assume that you're more interested in the technology side than the privacy side. Google just bought Nest a couple of weeks ago for a few $billions. So clearly Google is interested in either the data side of this or the robotics side of this. It's really unclear from this point. The privacy policy that Nest has online as of the time we're recording this states that they can only use this for information inside your house, and they're not collecting it or retaining it in nefarious ways, at least according to I'm not a lawyer reading of it. But if you are concerned about that, you should read the privacy policy yourself.
Okay, so there's also the app.
Yeah, so the app, I have it open here on the phone. All of the Nest stuff connects into one app. The only Nest device I have is One Protect right now. I'm probably going to replace the other smoke detectors in my house with this, actually.
It works with Android and iOS?
It's Android and iOS. You need to have a phone or a tablet to set it up, so you can't use a computer. The first time you'll use this app, you'll download it from the App Store. It'll say, hey, do you want to add a thermostat or a smoke detector? There's a QR code on the back of the smoke detector. You hold it up, point it at that. Then you connect to a Wi-Fi access point that the smoke detector makes. And go through a configuration process to tell it what your Wi-Fi is, basically, without having to type in a bunch of stuff or plug in a USB cable or anything like that. From there, you basically tell it what room it's in, and you can turn on some optional features. So I'll show you that stuff. This is the data page. Right now, it's saying that my battery life is really low, as we have established. It'll give you live updates of a test. I'll show you that.
Ready. In the hallway. Press to test. This is only a test. The alarm will sound.
That's the name of a podcast.
The alarm is loud. The test
should really
starts
sample that.
in 10 seconds. Press or wave to cancel. 10, 9, 8, 7.
Are you ready, Norm?
6,
It's really loud.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is only a test. Testing smoke.
Sends the message.
Testing carbon monoxide.
4 beeps.
Okay.
Anyway, so you can see the red light.
Finishing up.
The app updated and shows that the testing's happening right now. And it'll give the test results. If something's amiss, then it will warn you and say, oh, you should probably send this back for service or call the 800 number or whatever. You can also change the handful of settings that are specific to each device here. So that all falls under, well, first apply the name so it tells you
which room it's in.
So when the smoke alarm comes off and says, hey, you don't have a who's on first situation. If it says, hey, the smoke's in the hallway, and all of your are set up for the hallway, or which hallway, and next thing you know, your house is burned down. That's bad. Nest Sense are the kind of 4 optional features of the smoke detector. So Nest Wave is the go away, stop smoking, stop beeping.
How dramatic of a wave you're talking about?
Like I said, I've had
wave?
really, no, Queen Wave I don't think would do it. I did a big wave the only time I got it to work for me, and I was a little, didn't work very well.
Okay.
The path light is actually kind of neat. So it uses the motion sensor and the light sensor, which are both in the device. And when the lights are off, you're walking down your hallway at night, it just kind of fades up a real dim white light, just enough that you can kind of see what's in the path. You're not walking through the pitch black. It's very friendly. The nightly promise is probably one of these things that I would turn off. When you flip off the light, it just does a loop with the green ring on the light ring to let you know, hey, everything's cool, we're good. And then the heads up is the thing that says, hey, I'm about to go off. Heads up, there's smoke here. Do you want to hold the alarm or whatever? When you hit the button, it holds the alarm until the current thing is done. So even if the smoke, unlike my old dumb smoke detector, I would hit the thing and then it would go off again every 5 minutes. This will stay off until concentrations go back down and then they come back up again. So if you have a fire, put the fire out and then there's another fire, it's going to go off twice. But if you have one amount of smoke that takes 20 minutes to clear, it won't keep going off during that smoke period.
Now, it all connects to the Wi-Fi network. What if your Wi-Fi goes down or you have a poor Wi-Fi signal? Can it still operate without Wi-Fi?
It also has what's called an 802.15.4 wireless network. It operates on the same 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. I believe that it only uses that to connect to other smoke detectors, to other Nest Protect smoke detectors. I don't think it uses that to talk to the thermostat, but I could be wrong. But that should be independent of Wi-Fi, and it's more of a mesh network than a point-to-point network.
Kind of
like
like
a
a
Wi-Fi
Sonos.
network is. Yeah, so it works like the Sonos. It's much more important that this works when your Wi-Fi goes down than the Sonos, though. At least I think. Call me crazy. And then, so the other thing it does is if you have the Nest thermostat and it detects carbon monoxide and you've told the Nest thermostat that you have a fossil fuel burning heating system, like say a gas boil, a boiler or something like that, when the protects carbon monoxide alarm goes off, it will also automatically turn off the thermostat so that the furnace doesn't keep burning and contributing to the problem if that's what's causing it. Which it seems like a good, kind of smart feature to have.
That seems like a smart feature.
It's
the more you
synergy.
pay, the smarter it gets.
Synergy, Norm.
All right.
So that's it. It's this one isn't radioactive as far as I can tell. They only say that it has a photoelectric sensor. I haven't aimed the Geiger counter at it, so I don't know for sure. It does need to be replaced. So most smoke detectors, like these guys, will probably say, yeah, this is good for 10 years from October 22nd, 2012. This, they say you should replace every 7 years. This one was made in November of 2013, which means replacing it in November of 2020. That seems an awful often replacement cycle for something that is $130 to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I feel. I feel like that's like 10 years I'd be okay with, I think, because that seems to be the industry standard. 7 seems to be a little bit much. And also, I think the value of having these is greatly diminished if you're not already using the Nest thermostat.
And the value is only increased if you have more than one of these.
Yeah, likewise. I think if you're going to do this, you need to put them in all the rooms in your house. Norm, you have a 5-bedroom house, I think.
It would cost me
$9 smoke detectors
a year in using these.
Yeah.
For my house.
That said, if you have, it was an easy decision to replace the smoke alarm right outside the kitchen, because every time that goes off, it wakes up the baby, the dog gets all anxious and starts barking at the sky. Like $130 to not have that happening all the time, totally down for. There are a lot cheaper options. So that's the next Nest Protect, $130. I think it's really interesting. I wish it was a $30 premium over the CO, carbon monoxide and smoke detector combinations that are actually really good. I feel like a $70 premium for that's kind of a bit much. So that's it. We'll be back with more on tested.com soon. Norm, you're not going to get these?
I'm definitely not going to get them.
You think about those things you can replace.
With my $50 smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector.
If you were doing this with a new house, though, and you were already looking at $50 or $60 a room, would you pay the extra $50?
I would get it sponsored. I would put a sticker on that.
Say sponsored. It already has the logo.
I would cover up the logo and get it sponsored.
Okay,
subsidized.
So you'd have it. Okay, sounds good. This smoke detector is brought to you by Comcast. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.